All right, we have some new developments with regard to Justice Thomas. Last week, we brought you that extensive ProPublica report about how over literally decades, he was receiving elaborate gifts and going on fully paid vacations, courtesy of this one billionaire named Harlan Crow. One of the trips to Indonesia alone, which, you know, he flew there on a private jet and sailed around on a luxury yacht. That one trip alone would have cost him $500,000 if he had paid for it out of pocket. Every single year, he's going and staying at this dude's private resort. None of it disclosed, none of it on his financial disclosures, which, you know, it definitely should have been. Well, now we have another piece that in some ways is even more clear-cut. This is also from ProPublica. Let's put this up on the screen. So they say billionaire Harlan Crow, which is the same dude who was like sailing Clarence Thomas all around the world, he bought property from Clarence Thomas, and the justice did not disclose the deal. Now, the reason I say this is clear-cut is this is a very clear-cut violation of the ethics code and the legal requirements of what justices are supposed to disclose. Any real estate transaction where money exchanges hands over like $1,000 has to be disclosed. There are very few exceptions, and this particular transaction does not even come close to meeting the definition of any of the exceptions. So let me read you here some of the specifics. They say in ProPublica, in 2014, one of Texas billionaire Harlan Crow's companies purchased a string of properties on a quiet residential street in Savannah, Georgia. Was not a marquee acquisition for the real estate magnate, just a single-story home and 2 vacant lots down the road. What made it noteworthy were the people on the other side of the deal, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas and his relatives. The transaction marks the first known instance of money flowing from the Republican megadonor to the Supreme Court Justice. The Crow Company bought the properties for $133,363 from 3 co-owners, Thomas, his mother, and the family of Thomas's late brother, according to state tax documents. Now, here's the law. A federal disclosure law that was passed after Watergate requires justices and other officials to disclose the details of most real estate sales over $1,000. And again, this was for about $130,000. He never disclosed this sale. 4 ethics law experts say this appears to be a violation of the law. Thomas didn't respond. Harlan Crow did respond. He said that he had purchased Thomas' mother's house, where Thomas spent part of his childhood, to preserve it for posterity. Quote, my intention is to one day create a public museum at the Thomas home dedicated to telling the story of our nation's second Black Supreme Court justice. You know, in terms of the relevant laws, the intent of Harlan Crow here really doesn't matter, but that's his explanation of the transaction. And I also thought this was an important analysis from another legal ethics expert who said the failure to report the transaction suggests Thomas was hiding a financial relationship with Crow, especially when you add it together with the fact that you had the failure to disclose all these vacations and gifts at, you know, high level of value over years. Here you have an actual exchange of money, very clear-cut situation here, and this also not disclosed. The very latest I saw this morning, Saagar, is that Justice Thomas plans to now amend his disclosure forms to include this transaction, which is a recognition that, you know, he screwed up by not doing this. But I would also say, you know, this comes on top of not just the latest ProPublica revelations. Justice Thomas has had to amend his financial disclosures many times in the past because of, not because he wants to do it willingly, he discovers an error that he's got to clean up. No, because reporters forced him to. He didn't disclose his wife's employment details at a number of conservative organizations for years, like the entire early 2000s, basically. He didn't disclose that employment until, again, reports came out and forced him to reveal what was going on. And we even have another piece that we can show you as well from the Washington Post. This one, again, you might say is less of a big deal, I don't know, depending on how you read it. But the fact that it comes on top of all these other revelations just paints a picture of someone who is willfully hiding the reality of his financial situation. So their headline here is that Clarence Thomas has for years claimed income from a defunct real estate firm. What happened is he was receiving income from another real estate firm. That one goes under. They form a new related company, but it has a new name. It's incorporated in a different way. There are different people who are involved. and he never changes over to the new company.
Yeah.
So to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, he is, his financial disclosures are effectively hiding the real company that he is benefiting, receiving this financial benefit from, which, can be significant if there are people involved, a business in front of the court, et cetera. So that's the very latest.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that there's just no way around it. Like when you pay a guy for a house and you don't report it, that's pretty bad. It also comes down, this is the other thing. Private real estate transaction is one of those where, did he pay fair market value or not? I mean, there really is, it's a tough one to assess because in 2013, Harlan Crow bought a pair of properties on the same block for a total of $40,000, but in this case, he paid $133,000 for 4 separate properties. And then, again, whatever your intention, well, it's pretty odd because let's say you are preserving it for posterity, then, well, wouldn't you want to sell the house after your mother has died? Because now it looks like Harlan Crow was actually making improvements to the house while his elderly mother was living inside of it. I mean, that's a little bit of an in-kind help. Listen, I mean, it costs a lot of money to take care of old people. They want to stay in the house. Like, you want to make improvements to that. Now you got a billionaire who's paying for that. Now it's something that's off your chest. It's like, well, technically not a direct exchange, but definitely a major benefit to your quality of life. It's possible that he does, make one, but at the same time, he bought 2 empty plots in the area and then sold them off. From his property because he said that the developers were going to build something that kept the historical integrity of the neighborhood. It's like, well, hold on a second. You said you bought them to preserve posterity. So why did you buy the empty lots then? Just because the Clarence Thomases had them and I guess they needed the cash? Like, what's up with that? I mean, and then you include the Washington Post story where he's clearly just not abiding by the letter of the law.
Right.
And I think that really matters. I mean, everybody was talking about that
Supreme Court
with
Justice.
the Harlan Crow one. They were like, well, he didn't technically have to disclose it. I'm like, listen, like, you really think it's chill to be going on $500,000 vacations? Like, do you really think that is okay? If you were a conservative and RBG was doing corrupt stuff like that, which she was, would you really be okay with that? No, you wouldn't. Like, or Stephen Breyer or any of these people. All of this needs to be out in the open so that we have transparency. And if they do vote in a way that appears to align with their actual financial interests, then at the very least, like, you should be able to know that, and Congress should be able to take action if they want to. So I personally find it disgusting, a lot of the defense of this. It is just clear-cut, appearance of corruption and possible corruption itself. I don't know another way to say it.
No, I mean, that's right. And listen, if it was one little slip up, you could
that's one thing.
You could extend some grace, right? Like, okay, everybody messes up. Even Supreme Court justices who are supposed to be like the final word on the law of the land, even they could slip up on their financial disclosure reforms. He fixed it. All right, let's move on. But you're talking about infraction after infraction, like failure after failure, to the tune of hiding literally millions of dollars in benefit that he received from Harlan Crow in particular. But you had him hiding the employment details of his wife. You had him failing to report reimbursements for trips to speak at law schools that he had to amend his 2020 forms for. You have now the real estate company screw up. You have him not reporting the $130,000 he got from this property sale. And you're so right, Saagar, that this is like actually a pretty classic clear-cut standard operating procedure of potential corruption. Matt Bevin, the former Kentucky governor, he got caught in a similar kind of a situation where he had a real estate transaction with one of his largest donors that appeared to not be at fair market value, which is like, oh, this is just a way of you like straight up giving money to this individual. Now, is that what's going on here? We don't know. But guess what? The public deserves to know. You have a legal requirement to know. And at this point, with so many screw-ups over the years, there has to be a fulsome investigation because you have to look and go, well, what else is going on here that we don't know about, that journalists haven't been able to get their hands on to force and shame him into actually updating his forms and disclosing the reality of what's going on here. So yeah, this is utterly disgraceful. It's also insane that Supreme Court justices do not have a code of ethics the way that every other judge in the entire country does. And very clearly that needs to be instituted immediately, and there needs to be a full investigation of what other sort of financial entanglements Justice Thomas may have.
No question about it whatsoever.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.